Okay, we just rechecked all the hand-tight fittings. They're all good to go. Next thing I'm going to do is close the vent valve, perform positive pressure test. Do not use cylinder gas. Don't waste your oxygen. Don't waste your diluent gas when you got ambient air to do all this with. So I make sure that the vent valve is closed, and I'm going to blow up the loop. And you can see I blew it up, and as I continue to exhale into the loop, ambient air from my lungs, I closed the vent valve, or excuse me, the BOV lever when I started hearing gas coming out of the vent valve. So now that the cannelings are full, they're staying firm. I know the vent valve works because I heard air escape from that. That's important. And I'm looking down on the shear water, and I'm looking down on the Apex 4 handset, and they're both reading 0.20. They were reading 21. Well, when I exhaled some gas from my lungs into the loop, I had metabolized some of that oxygen. So that's a good sign to see that the sensors are reading what I just exhaled into the loop. So this is kind of a 30-second test. I don't hear anything. So basically you're doing a look, listen, and feel. Looks good to me. Sign off on it. 25. Perform negative pressure test. This is 30 seconds. Check for creeping increase of PO2 on the handsets. So what I'm going to do now, I put air into this thing, which is a bad thing, okay? It's okay for what I'm doing, but we don't want any ambient air into the loop. So when we start our dive, all we want is pure oxygen in the beginning. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and suck the loop down and put a vacuum on it. This is also another check. The vacuum test to test for leaks. And right now, I can hear the solenoid injecting. You're probably asking why. Why, gee, there should be oxygen in that loop. Well, I just put a vacuum on it, so there's inverse pressure. And to prove my point, right here it's reading 0.17 on the handset. And on the shear water in comparison, it's reading 0.17 also. That's a good sign. Now, in the checklist, it mentioned look for creeping oxygen. If the oxygen was creeping up to 0.18, 0.19, back to 2.0, that means you have a leak in the loop and air is coming back in. You need to find that. Again, this is a look, listen, and feel. The cannelings are compressed down. I'm listening for any leaks. All I hear is the solenoid engage. And I'm going to leave this in a vacuum state right now. That means very little nitrogen or anything that's in that loop right now. It's ready for the next step. Slowly open both oxygen and diluent gas supplies. That means slowly open. We're not going to just turn the valves on and introduce oxygen or nitrox or whatever into the high pressure seats of our first stages. That's harsh. That's very hard on the high pressure seats. We don't want to have any ignition issues or any melting of the plastic, which is in this case the high pressure seats. So we're going to slowly open, and you're going to hear some oxygen go into the loop from the solenoid. And you can see the loop start to inflate with a little O2. All right, so now I'm going to open the valves up 1.5 turns. That's 1.5 turns. No more than 2. Well, the reason that is when you're diving a CCR or rebreather of any kind, you only open up the valves just enough to allow the proper amount of gases into the system to work the automatic demand valve and the O2 system. The reason is if you had a boom scenario underwater, that's a catastrophic gas loss and bubbles are rushing to the surface or into your breathing loop. You want to reach back quickly to isolate the gases within a couple of turns. and that way you say what gas you have left, hopefully. Not guaranteed under certain scenarios, but in the most cases, if you isolate them, hopefully you save what's left. All right, so I'm going to sign off on 26. Verify O2 and automatic dill bypass valve operation. Observe high pressure gauge for dipping pressure. This is a technique that all rebreather divers should get into. There'll be a lot less fatalities and near accidents or near-death accidents if people looked at their gauges when the solenoid engages, or if they push the manual bypass. Okay? If you're a Copus diver or a KISS diver, if you looked at your high pressure gauge while oxygen is flowing, you would know it's working because the gauge should be near full, or where you knew what the pressure was. So when I push down on the O2 bypass, there's no dipping of the gauge. I'm going to go to the dill side, and I'm not going to put a lot of dill in here. In fact, it's going to be very, very little. If you're a mixed gas diver, I wouldn't even touch the ADV at all. Okay? Reason is, don't fill this thing full of hypoxic mix. What we want is to have almost pure O2 into the loop, especially for the beginning of the dive. It puts the rebreather into a very safe condition. And the beginning of the dive is generally one of the critical points. That's where people forget to turn on the oxygen or to turn on to set the set point at the appropriate place. So I'm going to add very little dill, and I'm going to watch the gauge. No dipping. I know the valve is on. Okay. Sign off on 27. Program set point to 0.7. Listen for oxygen injections. Compare displayed information between handsets and HUD. Injection should cease when the set point is reached. Note, primary handset has an asterisk character displayed at the bottom while injecting. Compress the counterlungs to cycle breathing gas through the loop. So simply, I'm going to go into the system here, configure mode. I'm going to get out of 0.2. It goes to 0.7. Oxygen is on. It's going to start adding oxygen. I can see that right now. I'm at 0.40. And what I can do is I can watch the handsets from here, and I'm just starting to compress each one of the counterlungs like I was breathing on it. And basically this is cycling the breathing gas around by using the check valves in the BOV or DSV. I'm at 0.64, both handsets are in agreement. If I have a little bit of gas escape the closed vent valve, that's fine. Okay, so I'm at 0.77, 0.77, 0.76, 0.76, 0.77. Yeah, both handsets compare. I'm looking at the HUD. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It thinks 0.6. I see 0.76 right there. So I redid everything there. And I can hear the solenoid turn on and turn off. That means I can hear the set point system working. And of course, if I watch the gauges, I don't see them dipping, so that means the valves are on. All right. Okay. Everything looks good. Sign off on the calibration and the set point system there. I know it works. Optional. This is optional. Conduct a linearity check at maximum oxygen in cylinder. Note highest millivolt for O2 flush. Lowest millivolt values is 43 millivolts for ISC sensors. Basically, if I didn't do any calibration mode, because for some reason maybe I'm on a boat or whatever, I analyze my sensor, my oxygen bottle, I put the whole rig back together again. Maybe I didn't use a checklist or something, and I didn't do a calibration. In this case, it'd be silly because the calibration is less than 3 seconds on the MiG 15. But I could do a reverse O2 flush, and whatever the sensors read from the prior calibration better match what I have in this oxygen cylinder. If they don't, then the system's out of calibration, possibly the sensor's bad, whatever. But that's a linearity check, and I'll demonstrate that in a later video. So I'm not going to do it, it's optional, I'll put a line through it. Record cylinder pressures. So I'm going to write down 25, 26, 27 on O2, and I got 26, 27 on dill. Write that down. There goes my initials. Oops, I just heard a solenoid engage. I think what I'll do is I'll add a little more O2. I'm going to do a reverse O2 flush. I crush the right inhalation hose. I add just a little bit of oxygen. I don't want the solenoid engaging while I'm doing this 2-minute check. All right, I'm good. It's up around 0.8 or so, 0.85. All right, so I'm rechecking this, 25, 26, 27. I didn't use much. All right, so I'm gonna close the valves now. I'm gonna do a 2-minute check. Now, if you don't have a watch on you, I can go into the Apex 4 handset and I can go to a countdown clock in there, go to checklist, pre-breathe, done, and it starts with 5 minutes. It's 4:58 right now. So in 2 minutes, I'll recheck my my gauges, and I'm looking for leaks in the pneumatic system. So I'll get back with you in about 2 minutes. Okay, it's been 2 minutes. I'll go ahead and stop the 5-minute clock. Go to bypass, back in dive mode. So I'm going to sign off, and I check my gauges again. Here we go, 27, 27, no leaks, perfect. Verify primary head and handset voltage or percent. So I'm going to go to the Apex 4, I'm going to go to battery, and I got 83% on the handset, because that's a rechargeable system, and 8.9 out of 9.0 battery. So I'll write down those values. Then I'm going to go to the shear water. It turned off on me, it timed out. So I'll go ahead and go to its battery. .9 and 1.46. Next it says secure displays to backplate assembly, fix set point to point 2. Turn off all gases and power unless immediately diving. So again, I'll recheck these, they're already off. I'm going to go ahead and set the system to point 2 because I'm not diving immediately. So let's go to configure, done, turn it off, and I'll secure the handset. To the breathing hose. I always leave them here. That way, when I put the rig together, I know where the handsets are. Turn off the shear water, connect it, done. Note, if any performance of any of the above tasks is in question, or the performance/operation of the CCR is in question, do not dive the CCR. Consult with the operation manual or call Innerspace Systems. You can call your instructor too. So you can just leave that blank or put a line through it. Any remarks, if you had to change the sensor, an O-ring, or any maintenance on the system itself other than lubrication of it, make a note of it right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and sign my name, and I'm good to go. All right, that's the MiG 15 pre-dive assembly. If you have any questions, well, watch the video again, or contact Innerspace, or talk to your instructor, or send us an email or something. All right, thank you very much. Leon Scamahorn, CEO, signing off. Okay, that was good.